Hello everyone, this is teacher Sumalata here. So today we'll begin the second session of the prose, The Best Advice I Ever Had, written by Mrs. Vijayalakshmi Pandit. So children, now let's read the 9th paragraph. His words would not leave me, they gave me no peace. After some days of severe struggle with myself, I finally telephoned my brother-in-law. I would like to see you and the family, I said before leaving. Here, children, his words refers to Gandhiji's words to Mrs. Vijayalakshmi Pandit. Mrs. Vijayalakshmi Pandit, after having conversation with Gandhiji, his words were sounding again and again in her mind. His words did not give her peace. So after some days of severe struggle, Vijayalakshmi Pandit was fighting with her thoughts whether to make peace with her family members or not. Finally, she telephoned her brother-in-law and said that she would like to see him and her family members before leaving for America. In the 10th paragraph, I hadn't been with them 5 minutes before I sensed that my visit had brought a feeling of relief to everyone. I told them of my plans and asked for their good wishes before starting on this new stage of my life. The effect on me was miraculous. I felt as if a great burden had been lifted and I was free to be myself. Here, I hadn't been with them 5 minutes before I sensed that my visit had brought a feeling of relief to everyone. Here, children, I refers to Mrs. Vijayalakshmi Pandit and them refers to her family members. So, Vijayalakshmi Pandit, after meeting her family members, felt happy and relieved for making peace with everyone. She stated her future plans to them and asked them to wish her good luck for her new stage of life. The effect on me was miraculous. Here the effect is making peace with her family. Earlier, she committed herself not to make peace with her family. But what happened was different. Thus, she called it as a miracle. I felt as if a great burden had lifted and I was free to be myself. Here she felt as if a great burden had been lifted and she was free to be herself. In the 11th paragraph, children, this small gesture was the beginning of a significant change in me. A year and a half later, I was in New York as the leader of the Indian delegation to the United Nations. Important to us was the India's complaint regarding the treatment of people of Indian origin in South Africa. Harsh things were said by both sides. I resented the manner in which my opponents made personal attacks harmful to India's prestige and to mine. I struck back with the same sharp weapon. So, here Mrs. Vijayalakshmi Pandit says, this small gesture, here gesture means the action of making peace with her family, was the beginning of an important change in her. When she was in New York as a leader of the Indian delegation to the United Nations, there was a complaint regarding the treatment of Indian people who lived in South Africa. Harsh things were spoken by both the nations. I resented. Here, Vijayalakshmi Pandit felt bitter by the manner of her opponents' personal attacks harmful to India's prestige and to her. I struck back with the same sharp weapon. When harsh things were spoken by both the nations, India and South Africa, she, Vijayalakshmi Pandit, being an Indian, was not ready to listen anything against India. Thus, she struck back with the same sharp weapon. Here, sharp weapon refers to her words. Just think, children, if someone speaks ill of our nation, how do we feel? Don't you get angry? So Vijayalakshmi Pandit also got angry with her opponents and struck back with the same sharp weapon. As they were shouting, she too was also shouting. In the 12th paragraph, children, then after a distressing duel of words, I suddenly thought of Gandhiji. Would he approve? To him, means were as important as the end. In the long run, perhaps more important. What if we succeed in getting a resolution passed by questionable tactics that injured our self-respect? So Vijayalakshmi Pandit, after having discussion or delegation with them, she thought of Gandhiji. Would he approve? To him means whereas important as the end in the long run, perhaps more important. What if we succeed in getting a resolution passed by questionable tactics that injured our self respect? As they were shouting, she too was shouting. If they were using bad remarks to attack her and her delegates, they too were doing the same thing. Then she started realizing, what would Gandhiji do? Here means methods and end means the final result. So some say that the final result is important and the method is not so important. But to Gandhiji means whereas important as the end. But to Gandhiji means were as important as the end. That means the methods, the words you use were also equal important as the final result. Then she realized, oh my God, I am using questionable tactics. Questionable means which is something not good, on which and should think over that injured our self-respect, affecting our self-respect. It is good to use such words against each other. Is it good to use such words against each other? No, it's not good. So suddenly she realized her mistake. So in the 13th paragraph, before going to bed that night, I resolved that come what might, no word of mine would be lightly used in the United Nations. From then on, I lifted the debate back to where I belonged, refusing to retaliate to personal attacks or to score a cheap point. Our opponents met us on the new level, and from then we argued the case on its merits. So now, what did she decide? I will not use cheap tactics. I have to use this argument and will use a better argument. My arguments will be based on proper points. I will argue the case in right way. Now, because she started lifting the debate back, so what did her opponents do? They also came to her level, and from then we, here we refers to Vijayalakshmi Pandit and her opponents, argued the case on its merits. In the 14th paragraph, before leaving the committee room on the last day, I went up and spoke to the leader of the opposing delegation. So Vijayalakshmi Pandit, before leaving the committee room on the last day, she went up and spoke to the leader of the opposing delegation that I have come to ask you to forgive me if I have hurt you by any word or action in this debate. He shook my hand warmly and said, I have no complaint. It was good to feel right with him, but even better to feel right with myself. Once more, Gandhiji's advice had saved me from myself. So, Mrs. Vijayalakshmi Pandit is saying that she went to that person to ask forgiveness because she thought that whether they felt bad on the harsh words or not, she wants to apologize. So she went to him and asked sorry if I have hurt you in any way. What did the opposition leader say? I have no complaint. That means it's okay. I don't have anything against you. So now she is telling it was good to realize that he didn't have any complaint. He didn't feel bad about me. After this, she also felt better to feel good with herself. So now she is telling once more Gandhiji's advice had saved her from herself. That means whenever she goes wrong, she is changing herself. In the 17th paragraph, his words have helped me retain perspective even in small matters. Many women, I imagine, share with me a recurring nightmare. Someone important to you is coming to dine. The guests have arrived. It is time to eat, but there is no dinner. You wake perspiring, relieved to find it is only a dream. So here also Vijayalakshmi Pandit says that Gandhiji's words have saved me. Many women see now women who are. Mrs. Vijayalakshmi Pandit says that if someone has invited a guest for dinner, imagine even if it is a dream, here everything is ready. When the time to eat has come, suddenly you realize that there is no food. Will it be a dream? It will be a nightmare. Then you wake up perspiring. Here perspiring means sweating all over. So how do you feel? Some important person is coming to have dinner. It is time to eat, but there is no dinner. Then you will wake up and say, thank God, it was just a dream. It is not real. But she is telling in her life it's really happened once. This incident really, truly took place in her life. So, in the 18th paragraph, but recently it really happened to me. My guest of honor, the Prime Minister of Great Britain and Lady Eden, could hardly have been more important to me. High Commissioner for India in the United Kingdom. So when Mrs. Vijayalakshmi Pandit was the Commissioner for India in the UK, that time she had invited the Prime Minister of Great Britain and Lady Eden. So these two very important people were supposed to come for dinner. I had planned everything meticulously from the menu to the color scheme of the flowers and the candles. When the guests had arrived and drinks had been passed twice, I signaled the butler to announce dinner, but still we waited. When for the third time drinks came round, I excused myself and ran downstairs to the kitchen. So now everything was planned meticulously, means carefully. The guests arrived and drinks had been served for twice. Then what did she do? She signaled the butler to announce that dinner is ready. But what happened? The dinner was not announced. They still waited. As they were waiting, third time drinks came around and she excused herself and she ran downstairs to the kitchen. In the 19th paragraph, it presented a shocking sight. In one corner stood a frightened little kitchen maid, in another, the housekeeper. At the table sat my cook, waving a ladle and singing, beating time with his foot. His eyes were glazed and he was far away in some other sphere. The table was littered with pieces of chicken. So when Mrs. Vijayalakshmi Pandit entered a little kitchen, in one of the corners stood the kitchen maid, in the other side the housekeeper, and at the table sat her cook waving a ladle. Ladle means a large sized spoon, and singing, beating a rhythm with his foot. So how were his eyes? His eyes were glazed, means dull, and he was not at all alert. He is not in this world. He is drunk. And the table was littered with pieces of chicken. My knees felt too weak to support me, but I asked in a normal a voice as I could command, "Why, isn't the dinner ready?" "But is it ready, madam?" my cook chanted. "All ready, everybody, sit down, sit down." She asked the cook that whether the dinner is ready. But the cook replied, "All ready, madam. Everybody sit down, sit down." I was furious. It was on the tip of my tongue to say, "Get out. You are dismissed," when I thought of the counsel that had calmed me so many times. If I lost control, I would only hurt myself. So, who will not be angry, right? Angry, right? Very important people are waiting outside for dinner, but here nothing is ready, and the cook is finally fully drunk. So, she wants to fire him, but she thought, okay, let me not do that. If I lose control, I would only hurt myself. In the next paragraph, I pulled myself together. "Let's get something on the table," I said. Everyone pitched in. The food served wasn't quite what the menu described, but when I told my guests what had happened, there was a chorus of surprise. "If this is what your cook gives you when he's drunk," someone exclaimed, "what must he provide sober?" So, everyone was there, right? The housekeeper, maid, servant. They all started helping her. "Okay, let's prepare something." The food prepared wasn't quite what the menu described, but when I told my guests what had happened, there was a chorus of surprise. "If this is what your cook gives you when he's drunk," someone exclaimed, "what must he provide sober?" So now what did they do? They somehow prepared something else, not what was described in the menu, and presented it to the guests. But what the guests are telling, they are so happy with the food. So Mrs. Vijayalakshmi Pandit told that, "Sorry for all this. We couldn't provide you what was mentioned in the menu because my cook is drunk." So they are telling, if he makes such a delicious food when he is drunk, what would he provide when he is sober? Sober means when the person is not drunk. That state is called sober. So if he is sober, what delicious food he might provide. Next paragraph. The relief in My laughter must have sounded a little hysterical. My perspective restored, I realized that a dinner party, however important, is not the pivot of existence. To retain a sense of proportion is as important as being able to keep one's heart free from hatred. For all of us, no matter what our work, the advice Gandhiji gave me is meaningful. No one can harm you but yourself. So she's telling this dinner party is not the pivot of existence. That means this dinner party is not the reason for your existence. So even if something goes wrong in the dinner party, it is not the end. So nothing is important except your peace of mind. The perspective you have about yourself. If you have hatred and anger, even for small incidents, if you burst out with anger, it is of no use. If you are angry, you are hurting yourself. See what did Mrs. Vijayalakshmi Pandit do when that man, the cook, she was very angry. If she had fired him, the anger would have bubbled inside her and it would have stayed with her forever. So now, when she forgave him, then thought that is the next step. So she realized suddenly, let me do something about it without getting angry. And everything went on smoothly because her peace of mind is important. That is what Gandhiji said, that no one can harm you but yourself. So if anyone is hurting you also, only if you let them harm you, if you let those words enter your heart and hurt you, that is when it hurts. If you just throw those words out of your heart and try to be peaceful, that means the hurting words will not hurt you. So this is in your hands, okay? I hope you understood this lesson, because this is not just a lesson, it is also a life lesson. So children, you can go through all these two videos once again. So this is not an advice only for Mrs. Vijayalakshmi Pandit, but also for all of us. Right? See you all. Bye-bye.